Hey, good morning everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss Pre-Market Report for June 14th, 2016. I'm Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss, with analysis for the ES and a daily time frame here. Here's a look at the daily time frame. What we were looking at before was how was price going to respond once it failed to hold above the previous week's high. And this is where bulls were defending for several days, but they weren't getting paid on the top end. That implied that we could see price go offered through that area and not only come back toward the 2076s, these recent lows, but also down toward the 2052s and perhaps all the way back down to the bottom of value. So far, we've done a very good job of pushing down toward that area after early strength was defended the previous session. And that's what we were looking for, especially in the trading room. We talked about the higher value relationship week over week, but how price opened below, closed below that relationship, and rallied into it. This was defended, and steady weakness came as a result. Now what we're looking for is to sell rallies into new lows, and pullbacks have been defended again in overnight trading, but the idea is that more weakness will likely be seen. Any strength likely to be defended for a push back toward 52s. That's a composite VPOC. You also have 40 quarter here, which is MC VPOC, and then of course bottom of value, anything below 22s. So we could be looking at more weakness ahead. Again, any pullback likely to be defended back toward the previous week's low. That's 2079.5 for a shot at additional weakness ahead. Let's take a look at crude oil. Here's crude oil. This is an intraday, or rather a daily time frame where we've been continuing higher very nicely. Recently, we saw price fail to hold below the previous month's high at 50.21 after rejection off the LVN. The 51.65 was the area we mentioned will likely be an area that bears would look to defend for a shot at returning prices back to 49.36, perhaps 49.10. I also mentioned that once price gets to the zone, you may see bulls look to defend prices below the previous close for a shot at squeezing further toward 53.40. Now that all depends on how price responds off this LVN and recent previous month's high here. So the space between 47.22 and 47.61 is very important. That's a nice bend in the profile there that bulls really must defend for a continuation higher back toward recent highs. Otherwise, a failure to hold that 47.22 will open up a path back toward the next lowest HVN, which is 44.72. Let's take a look at gold here. Here's gold. Gold has continued to push higher. Very, very nice aggressive strength here that we've seen. Likely to see a little more strength here, especially as the broader market starts to pull back from recent highs. 1208.30, a very nice area that was defended. Once price went bid through value, the defense from above was very, very nice as well. And we've seen a continuation. We've reached our first major target zone. The next major target zone above will be 12.99 and anything between 13.10 and 13.20. Now, as we mentioned before, that we have an upward sloping kind of top of the range here with a kind of a flat bottom portion of the range. So we could be looking at a push to new highs above 13.08, perhaps as high as 13.27. And then we could see prices in that area kind of begin to see weakness, and then we could see another rotation back down. But overall, prices have been bullish. Pullbacks have been defended. So despite any weakness we see, we could be seeing another defense opportunity that brings us again back toward highs. Right now, that's kind of, we're just looking for a little more strength here to 12.99 to 13.08. What happens from there, we'll have to see, because if any acceptance occurs beyond those zones, we could begin to see expansion toward the outer expansion targets, which we have much, much higher, even into 14.52. So a lot more potential strength could be seen ahead, but short term, we have to see how price responds between 12.99 and 13.08. Looking at the NQ here, the NQ's been very nice again. This one's been giving us very clear rejection days. Another rejection day was seen here. We had an opportunity to defend off of the previous month's high. That was perfectly defended, and since then we've never come back. We mentioned before that should we get an upside break through the top of this range through 4,400, we'd likely see a move toward 45.50. Once we see that, we'd likely see a move all the way back against the grain, and then we'd fill in this portion of the profile. And so far, we're seeing that play out. Here's 43.89.5. Once price reaches this area, we could see price begin to come back up against the range and rally toward highs, at which point we look to continue the trading range that's developing in this area. So right now we have a really nice impulse range from this low to this high. Impulse range move there with a midpoint likely tested by now. That could be the next key range that you could be looking for the next medium term position type trade and analysis. So we'll be keeping an eye on this. But right now, 43.89.5, very important in that zone. Bulls want to defend prices at or below it in order to return it back toward 44.86 and perhaps a little higher. So that's what I'll be looking for right now. We obviously have a little bit more downside that could be seen. Once we see rejection on the lows, that's when it could be time to flip this thing back up. But right now we're in a price discovery phase to find those lows. Once we do, we'll be looking to fade it back toward the midpoint and perhaps toward recent highs. All right, that's it for now. Let's see how this thing plays out heading into the rest of the session. Good luck and trade well.